G'day! In this lesson we will configure the book to author relationship. We have created the book and author functionalities for the bookstore application. However, there is currently no relationship between these entities. In this lesson we will establish a one-to-many relationship between the author and the book entities. Let's open the books/book.cs in the domain project and add the following property to the book entity, public GUID with the name author ID. In this lesson, we prefer to not add a navigation property to the author entity for the book class, like public author with the name author. This is because we want to follow the DDD best practices and principles. You can add such a navigation property and configure it using the EF core package if you wish. If you choose to use navigation properties, we don't need to write join queries while getting the books with their authors, which makes our application code simpler. We have added a new required author ID property to the book entity, but what about the existing books in the database? They currently don't have author IDs, and this will be a problem when we try and run the application. This is a typical migration problem, and the decision depends on your case. If you haven't published your application to the production yet, you can just delete existing books in the database, or you can even delete the entire database in your development environment. You can update the existing data programmatically on data migration or the seed phase, or you can manually handle it on the database. We will prefer to delete the database by running the command drop-database in the package manager console, since it's our development environment and data loss is not important to us. We open Bookstore DB Context Model Creating Extensions class under the Entity Framework Core folder of the Entity Framework Core project and change the builder.entity of type book entity code with the following code. Let's run the following command in the PMC. To add a new database migration, add-migration with the label added_author-ID_to_book. We need to ensure that the entity framework.db migrations is set as default project in the PMC, and the DB migrator is the startup project as always. This should create a new migration class in the up method. Basically, this code adds an author ID field to the app books table, creates an index on the author ID field, and then declares the foreign key to the app authors table. Since the author ID is required property of the book entity, current data seeder code cannot work, so we will open the bookstore data seeder contributor in the acme.bookstore.domain project and change its content with the following code. The only change is that we set the author ID properties of the book entities. Let's delete the database before using the drop database command in the PMC and execute the DB migrator to migrate the new database schema and seed the initial data. We will now need to change the book app service to support the author relation. Let's modify the DTOs. Let's open the book DTO class in the books folder of the application.contracts project and add the following properties. We will also need to open the create update book DTO class in the books folder of the application.contracts project and add an author ID property as shown. Let's create a new class, author Lookup DTO, inside the books folder of the application contracts project. This new method will be added to the iBook app service. So we open the iBook app service interface in the books folder of the application.contracts project and add a new method named getAuthorLookupAsync using the following code. This new method will be used from the UI to get a list of authors and fill up a drop-down list to select the author of the book. We will need to implement this getAuthorLookupAsync method in the book app service. So we open the Book App Service class in the Books folder of the application project and replace the file contents with the following code. We've added the authorize attribute with the argument bookstore permissions.books.default to authorize the methods we have newly created, added, and overridden. Remember, authorize attribute is valid for all the methods of the class when it is declared in this way. We've also injected iAuthor repository to query the authors. We've also overridden the getAsync method of the base CRUD app service, which returns a single book DTO object with the given ID. We've also used the simple link expression to join the books and authors and query them together for a given book ID. We've also used the async executor.first or default async method to execute the query and get a result. Async executor was previously used in the author app service lesson. The getAsync method throws an entity not found exception, which results in a HTTP 404 not found result if the requested book was not present in the database. Finally, getAsync method creates a book DTO object using the object mapper, then assigns the author name manually. We've also overridden the getListAsync method of the base CRUD app service, which returns a list of books. The logic is similar to the previous methods, so you can easily understand the code. We've also created a new method, getAuthorLookupAsync method. This simply gets all the authors. The UI uses this method to fill a drop-down list and select an author while creating or editing books. Since we have introduced the author lookup DTO class and used object mapping inside the getAuthorLookupAsync method, so we need to add a new mapping definition inside the bookstore application automapper profile.cs file of the application project. Create map author to author lookup DTO. Some of the unit tests will fail since we've made some changes to the author app service. So we'll open the book app service _tests in the books folder of the application.test project and change its contents with the following code. We have changed the assertion condition in the shouldGetListOfBooks method from b lambda b.name equals 1984 to b lambda b.name equals 1984 and b.authorname equals George Orwell to check if the author name was filled in. We've also changed the shouldCreateAValidBook method to set the author ID while creating a new book, since now it's required to create a new valid book. We will now make modifications to the user interface. It is very easy to show the author name in the book list. We open the books.razor file in the Blazor project and add the following data grid column definition just after the name column. Let's run the application and navigate to the book list page. We can see the authors column on the table. We will now make the modification to the create and edit modals so that we have a drop-down of the authors to assign a book we are creating or updating. Let's add the following code to the @code block section of the books.razor file. We will also need to override the onInitializedAsync method and add the following code. It is essential to call the base.onInitializeAsync method since app.crud pagebase has initialization code that needs to be executed. Finally, we will add the following field definition into the modal body of the create modal as the first item before the name field. This requires to add a new localization key in the en.json file. So we open the en.json file in the location/bookstore folder of the domain.shared project and add the following translation key to the end of the file. Let's run the application to see the author selection while creating a new book. We then add the following field definition in the modal body of the edit modal as the first item before the name field. That's all. We are reusing the authors list defined for the create modal. Let's run the application to try and modify the authors of the books to test the changes we've made in the edit modal. This was the last lesson in this course. Let's build the bookstore application using Blazor and Entity Framework. I love the fact that we can use our C# skills on the client side and we don't need to write any JavaScript code. Hope you enjoyed this course. Thanks for watching.